Yo, what's up, guys? Merry Christmas Eve. Thanks for joining me. I am going to try to do this whole video in one take. Have no idea how this will go. But today I really want to talk to you all about the differences between raiding and raid leading from classic TBC to classic Wrath. What changes? What cooldowns come into play? How do the boss fights kind of change, and from a mechanics perspective, and what can you expect going from our TBC experience to our Wrath experience? And so first off, just to get us started, the first thing I want to do is talk about cooldowns because I think Wrath of the Lich King has way more cooldowns at your disposal that you're actually going to be using and calling out for in the middle of the raid that you just simply don't have in TBC. And so some of those new ones I'm going to talk about here, we got first off is our Divine Sacrifice. This is our raid sack. And this comes from paladins who spec into it in the protection tree, which both holy paladins and protection paladins should be doing. And your rep paladin should have an off spec with this spec into it, if not their main spec into it. So every paladin should be bringing this, what we call a raid sack. And it's going to reduce 30% damage from all party members. But it's also going to do even more because you can spec into it actually to get 50%. So that is one CD that we actually call out for a lot in Wrath of the Lich King. Another one really similar is going to be Hand of Sack. Hand of Sack is kind of like your pain set for your paladin, except every paladin gets it. You don't have to spec into it. This one's really fun. Holy paladins and rep paladins, what they can do is they can bubble first, and then they can put on Hand of Sack onto whatever tank that needs it. That way, they're not taking any of the return damage, and then it's just 100%, just a 30% damage reduction to that tank that they apply it to. Other things to keep in mind is that I'm not showing here is like Pain Sup. Now we still have Pain Sup in TBC, but nobody really runs it because nobody's really going full deep disc. But Pain Sup is going to be always a CD that's going to be called for in Wrath. Another one is going to be Salvation. Salvation here turns away from the TBC counterpart, which is a buff. This is now a cooldown, has a 2-minute cooldown, and it's used to reduce the threat of somebody. And this is something that you have to call for. Either the tank who's tanking sees that somebody's catching up to their threat, or the warlock or mage or whatever class that it is that's pulling needs to be able to call, I need salvation on rugs. And they need to be able to call that. Another one is Aura Mastery. Um, let's see if I can show you it here. Aura Mastery changes from its TBC counterpart, which is just an increased raid range of your auras, to now it's a cooldown. And basically, how we use this is on fights where our casting is going to get interrupted. We pop Aura Mastery while holding our concentration aura, and we don't get kicked. Nobody in the raid gets kicked, not your casters, not your healers, and so they can continue to bomb DPS or bomb your tanks with heals during those phases. Definitely happens on Ignis and Freya, from what I can remember, just right off the top of my head. This also increases the effectiveness of any aura at all. So if there's a fight with high shadow damage, a fight with high fire damage or frost damage, I'm thinking like Saffron or Sindragosa, you're going to be wanting to pop these aura masteries as a raid cooldown to reduce that incoming raid damage. Ton of fun, new ability coming into Wrath. A couple more, we got priests. Every single priest is going to have 2 hymns. They have your healing hymn and your mana hymn. I believe it's called Divine Hymn and Hymn of Hope. And the healing hymn is just going to heal people that are really low and really close to dying. Great raid CD, especially on a fight like Algalon, where people just get spiked down real hard. Or maybe on a fight like a Lich King, if you need help with Infest, if a healer gets picked up by a Valk or something like that. Mana Hymn is going to be great for getting mana back on your healers who are running really Resto Shamans get Mana Tide, which you want to call for so that, maybe that Shaman isn't having any mana issues, but he doesn't realize that your Holy Paladin is like running completely and so you need to call for your Mana Tide. Uh, some bonus CDs. We got PI still. Not many people again spec into PI in Wrath. In TBC, it's a bit far, but most people will be calling for PI pretty regularly in Wrath. If not, you'll already have it set up in Whispers with who you're going to give it to. Another one is Hysteria. Your blood decays. They're going to have Hysteria that they want to give to their feral or their warriors or a frost decay or a combat rogue. Tons of people are going to want Hysteria, and so that Hysteria is going to be sent out just the same way as PI will. And your rogue's gonna have tricks of the trade, which they want to give to warlocks or shadow priests that are snapshotting their dots, and maybe they're giving it to each other because they want to increase each other's DPS because they're greedy. All of these are new CDs that we get in Wrath that we actually get to call for and get to use at our disposal to counter any boss mechanics that we run into. And speaking of countering boss mechanics that we run into, Wrath bosses actually just have a different feel to them than our TBC counterparts. You'll often find that bosses have these moments where the tank is either going to take a high amount of damage or the raid is about to take a high amount of damage. And some things I can think of for like boss mechanics that are attacking your tank. Um, Off the top of my head, we got Maexna with the web spray. It's going to be about 5 or 6 seconds where your tank isn't getting any heals or anything at all because the entire raid is stunned. That's raid damage, and your tank is going to get wrecked. Uh, Lotheb, you have no healing phases for about 12 to 15 seconds or whatever it is. And those are moments where you have to have a CD running as a tank. Otherwise, you're just going to get slapped really hard. You got to have CDs going there. I think in Old War, Iron Council, Steelbreaker, he has his charged up fist attack. Gotta have a CD running during that, or your tank could totally just get globaled by it. If you are doing General Vezax in Ulduar and you decide you don't want to kite him and you want to do the strategy where you keep him totally still, what you do is you just rotate CDs for it. As soon as he um, gets his ability, you got to run a CD, you got to run a pain sip, you got to run a hand of sack, you got to run your IBF, your shield wall, your divine protection. All these things, they're actually really, really important to have timing and communication for. Algalon's a great one. I mean, you don't it's not that he does any particular damage in particular, it's just he does a massive amount of damage overall, always. And so you want to have these CDs running chain after chain after chain so that you have something going almost at every single moment throughout the fight because it's so much. Think about TOGC, a noob. He has a freezing slash ability that hits your tank really hard and freezes your tank. If you don't have a CD running during that, it could be a wipe. It could straight up just be a wipe. And then I'll get on Lich King. He's got a Soul Reaper. You got to have a CD running for that. This changes a lot. I don't really know. I don't really think that there's many bosses in TBC where you can do this. There's not many CDs to counter it, first of all. Your tanks will have shield wall from your warriors, and that's pretty much it. And so there's just not like that mechanic existing in TBC right now. Although both do have your innervates, your bloodlusts, your battle reses, and your blessing of protections, which don't really change. TBC just is different. It's more involved in the raid prep. If you've ever done any TBC raiding, you'll know that trash mechanics matter and will wipe your raid consistently if you underestimate them. You have to take your trash very, very, very seriously. And in particular, threat is really careful on TBC. I mean, you will make a whole raid prep, a whole raid plan just based on threat in general because your tanks might be running a resistance set where their threat is going to be worse, or just your tanks might not have good uptime, or it might be a fight like Void Reaver where it's similar to Patchwork, but your tanks are literally fighting for threat the whole way because it keeps getting dumped. Lots of differences there. Ultimately, TBC is just really, really worried in the raid prep. And the better your raid prep is in TBC, the better your raid will go. And in Wrath, I feel like the more that you can raid lead in the moment, the better your raid will go. And I actually have some video examples that I want to show you. And I'm only going to show my perspective, only my content here. I don't want to get flagged for DMCA by using anyone else's content. Although I will recommend some people at the end of the video that you could check out. But first off, let's go to this 10-man Algalon video. Now, this is from March of this year. And I believe this is a um, pre-nerf Algalon 10. So this should be a pretty similar example of what we will be experiencing when we get our classic Wrath 10-man Algalon. And this is week 1, so everyone in my raid is, running in tier 7 gear, Nax OS and EOE gear. We even have a couple alts because we were trying to, split up our 10-man so that we were, getting effective loot here and there. So our Holy Paladin is actually an alt. But let's go ahead and just jump in, and I'm going to pause as we go along here. And just listen to these raid callouts.
I'll raid suck after your blood. Yeah.
Dying in 2, 1.
Okay, so two things right off the bat. As soon as I started, we had a raid call out from our paladin saying, "I will raid sack after your blood." So our DK was running Vampiric Blood. That's one tank CD that he had going while he had Algalon. And as soon as his blood is ending, we're gonna have raid sack going. And then our guy who is killing stars is giving a call out for when star is about to die, because that's when we know we're about to take a lot of raid damage, so that your healers can be ready to use globals on raid healing to pick your raid back up and keep them healthy.
Blood all in 3.
Yeah, yeah. Raid sacking, coffin follow up after.
Star dying in 4.
Now you can see we got the raid sack immediately after our Vamp Blood died. We had a call out saying that Star was dying in 4 seconds, ended up dying like right after. So bad call there, but at least there's communication there going on that.
Little quick.
Hand sack on Yasha as well.
We got our hand sack on our Blood DK running right now. We have 8 seconds remaining on that.
Watch that melee star. It'll die in 4 seconds.
I'm taunting in 3, 2, 1.
And we got our tanks counting down when they're going to taunt, because Algalon does so much damage. I'm telling you, you have to like literally call out when you're taunting so that your healers can make sure that they are ready to spam heal on you.
Walling.
And the last star dying in 4.
Tell me when your wall is out.
Yeah, in 2 seconds you can start.
We used the part.
Okay, so we had our prop paladin taunt, and he pops his divine protection. And as soon as it ends, we actually have our hunter calling for communication on when his wall is about to run out, so that he can make a play here.
Let's on the boss.
Yep.
And that's it right there. You see our hunter actually distracting shot the boss. I believe he probably popped deterrence there, although he could have just feigned death. I'm not 100% sure. But he distracting shots the boss and basically gets Algalon to run from point A to point B, which is just uptime sacrifice so that he's not a tank attacking any tank for that moment. It's basically like a raid CD or a tank CD.
Did you down back?
Nope.
And that's pretty much it. We'll stop it there. I just love that clip. I think the communication on all the CDs that are happening at any given point is a really good example of maybe a stressful fight that you could encounter during Classic Wrath, and how you want to communicate your CDs rolling. We got another example here. This is actually going to be a Magtheridon kill in Classic TBC from my perspective. I believe this is my guild's second kill. So at this point it's farm content, but it's still not a freebie. It's not a freebie at this point, but just listen to the raid callouts on this.
Ligma, try to feign deaf your threat if you can, please.
So the first thing is we get a call out for our hunter to feign death this threat.
We really can't afford to pull threat, Ligma. You need to feign deaf your threat.
I did it.
Good job, buddy.
Totally normal for nothing to be said during this time.
Group 2 and 25. Group 2 is Dodgen, Efnamor, Smeegs, Nezgrol, and Ligma. Smeegs, don't forget, this is your click, okay? It's your first time, so just reminding you.
And this is a really, really good call out by my raid leader right here. He is looking at a spreadsheet on his other monitor that says who is supposed to be clicking a cube at each given point, and reminding his raid with his voice with a raid call out saying who's supposed to be clicking next. Great raid call out, but honestly, it's just raid prep. It's like we talked about. All it is raid prep. He's just speaking out raid prep on comms.
You know your marker, right?
I do.
Okay, great, thanks. Clicks in 12 seconds, be in position. Remember, it's imperative that you click CF Res Jambros. You got cleaved by the boss.
Just a very tedious fight, really tedious. You got to be really careful in particular with your clicks. And we're going to talk more about that tediousness with this other clip I have here. This is going to be a moment where I'm co-raid leading at this point in our raid. This is on Kael'thas. Again, this is not our first kill. Actually, this is maybe our third or fourth kill of KT. But let's go ahead and jump in on this one too. Don't charge it.
Sorry, I was far away because I was.
Just let
not paying
O
attention.
kick it, bro. Okay, so immediately I'm a douche. I kind of raged at our arms warrior here because he charged the staff, which caused it to get delayed and to bring it into the stack for AoE damage. The only reason this matters is because we already had a plan for our enhancement shaman to interrupt the first cast and for the staff to not be intervened or intercepted to, so that way it's not stunned and not getting lagged behind. This whole pull in particular is actually a really stressful fight during KT. This is a really, really, really particular pull, a really, really particular part of this fight. Everything that happens right now is like, it matters. You can see in the middle here, we have all these stacked on our prop paladin. We have our prop warrior off to the side tanking devastation. Then off to the side, right down here, you can see the longbows being tanked by one of our hunters. This is all very, very, very particular, but so much is happening in this moment that you really can't like call out any of this crap. Like, it has to be planned beforehand. It's all in the raid prep. And everyone goes into this poll knowing exactly what they need to do because it's all super freaking particular. And if you're not in your right moment, if you're not in your right place at the right moment, you might drop thread on something. You might not hold thread on something. Something might get off and do a whirlwind in your raid, or any number of things could go wrong. Let's keep watching.
Oh my god, you can stun the axe.
I told you.
But my raid!
Again, not a lot has to be said in this moment. We're just talking about stunning devastation. Don't forget to loot the staff. Reminding people to loot the staff, loot their legendary items. Just a normal role-playing aspect of this fight. Nothing crazy. Healers, the infuser's dead. Telling our healers that a legendary is available for them to pick up, because oftentimes healers aren't looking at enemy damage. And that's it. I mean, honestly, if I could, I would provide more videos for us to look at of maybe trash pulls. But I don't think my guild is great at trash. I could maybe find some clips for you to look at, or you can just look at my old VODs and watch us pull trash, because trash is so freaking particular on TBC. But instead, I actually would recommend you just look at the speedrunners. Check out these speedrunning guilds in Classic TBC and watch how serious they take trash. And trash is serious in Wrath, but it's not a big deal. ICC, it's a pretty big pain in the ass, and in Ulduar, it's kind of rough. But for the most part, there's just like one mechanic that you need to pay attention to, and then everyone just blasts, and you don't need all 25 people there. In TBC, you got to be paying attention to it. Your trash pulls are so important, and a lot of your stress and a lot of your raid calls will be coming in through trash and assigning which tank needs to be on which target exactly. And that's kind of it. That's just a little conversation about the differences between raid leading during TBC and raid leading during Wrath. If you want, you can always look at any of my VODs. I'm playing on a customly buffed Nax experience right now in Wrath. And so if you want, you can see all these fights that are actually like going to be way harder than what we'll get on Classic Wrath. So you can see the raid leading and the raid environment and the raid style, maybe the positioning of range and the positioning of melee to get good uptime on bosses, things like that. That's actually a really good use of VODs right now in preparation for Classic Wrath. And then that's pretty much it. When Classic Wrath comes, we're expecting it to be a lot easier than what I'm experiencing right now in this private server. So I would definitely recommend you to just keep that lens in the back of your mind. That's it for this video. I feel like I've been talking for way too long on the subject. Y'all have a Merry Christmas. I can't wait to hear what you say about this video. Please give me some comments down below. I want to know what you want to be hearing next. What should I be talking about next? Maybe I can provide for you some more commentary on old VODs of mine, or whatever the case may be. You tell me what you want to see. I'm reading all the comments I get below, so please, if you want to flame me, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna see it. If you want to ruin my day, you can ruin it down below. We're chilling, boys. I'm happy to do it for you. Merry Christmas, guys. We'll be talking soon. Peace.